Hi, and welcome to another digital book talk from Massanutten Regional Library. My name is Susan Versen, and I'm a reference librarian here at the Central Branch, and I'm here to talk about some books to celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month. Every year from September 15th to October 15th, Americans celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month by appreciating the community's history, heritage, and contributions of the ancestors of American citizens who came from Mexico, Spain, the Caribbean, and South and Central America. September 15th was set as the starting date for the month because it is the independence anniversary for El Salvador, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and Honduras. The Independence Days for Mexico and Chile fall on September 16th and September 18th, respectively, which is something I didn't know, so it was cool to find that out. Hispanic Americans have been and continue to be an integral part to the prosperity of the United States and our communities here in the Valley. MRL wants to celebrate the history, authors, and stories from our Hispanic American community. So here are a few reading recommendations for the month. I'm going to start with the book in the middle here. It's called Mexican Gothic. It's by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. It was published in 2020. Full disclosure, Silvia Moreno-Garcia is Mexican by birth and actually Canadian, so a little off outside, but it's a fantastic book, so I wanted to include it. We have this as a large print, a regular print, e-audio, and an e-book. It's a Gothic novel, and it's wonderful. So if you enjoy Gothic novels, this is a great book to read. She's also written several others that I'll talk about at the end. But the synopsis of the story is that after receiving a frantic letter from her newlywed cousin begging for someone to save her from her mysterious doom, Noemi heads to High Place, which is a distant house in the Mexican countryside. She's not sure what she'll find. She's not sure if her cousin is being overly dramatic. And Naomi is not necessarily your normal savior figure. She's a debutante. She's out on the town. She is dressed in high fashion. And she gets to High Place, and it's kind of spooky and scary. So the mystery is what's really happening to her cousin. Is she making it up? Is it really she's being imprisoned by her husband? And the husband is kind of a suspicious character, and the family is kind of creepy. They're Anglos that have moved to Mexico, and they've brought everything with them. They brought soil from their homeland. It's an excellent book, and if you like Gothic novels, I highly recommend this. If you would like this book, I would also recommend looking at a couple of other books by Moreno-Garcia. She wrote Gods of Jade and Shadow, which came out in 2019, and her newest book is called Velvet is the Night, and that just came out this year. So if you're looking for something spooky and creepy that incorporates some Mexican heritage and history, this is a great book to look at. The next book I want to talk about is Dominicana by Angie Cruz. This came out in 2019. This is also a fiction book. Angie Cruz, the author, is a New York-born Dominicana herself who traveled to and from New York City from the Dominican Republic for most of her formative years. The story is inspired by her mother's arrival. She is currently an associate professor at the University of Pittsburgh, where she teaches in the MFA program. So a little bit about her. The story is about 15-year-old Anna, who had never really dreamed of moving to America like many of her peers. But when she's offered the option through a marriage proposal, she says yes, because this is an opportunity for her and all of her family to move to New York City. However, when she gets to New York City with her new husband, Juan, in 1965, the marriage turns out to be a little bit more restrictive and unhappy than she had hoped and expected. And she's confined to her apartment. She's not allowed to really meet people or enjoy herself. And she's contemplating leaving the marriage. And then her husband is called back to the Dominican Republic, and she actually starts interacting more with her community, with her brother-in-law, and she starts to imagine a different kind of life in America. And so the question is, what choice will Anna make? Will she stay in the marriage? Will she leave? Will she stay in New York? What will she do? So it's a great story about these different choices that she faces in being between two cultures and how she resolves that. But you have to read the book to find that out. Okay, next I'm going to move on to some nonfiction options. The first one is called The Undocumented Americans by Karla Cornejo Villavicencio. This was published in 2020. We have it regular print, audiobook, and ebook as well. So Cornejo is an Ecuadorian American writer and the author of the Undocumented Americans, which was shortlisted for the National Book Award for Nonfiction. She writes a lot about her experiences as an undocumented immigrant and her travel from Ecuador to the United States, and she's currently working on her PhD in American Studies at Yale University. So she defines this book as part reporting, part fiction, and part memoir, or creative nonfiction is how she refers to this. So its central theme is undocumented and DACA experiences of men and women and children that she has interviewed. She traveled up and down the East Coast, so it is predominantly an East Coast story or interviews. And she opens a window into the lives of the undocumented Americans on the East Coast. She gets a lot of firsthand experiences, and then the creative nonfiction part is sometimes she imagines the story of people she couldn't actually interview, but she tells their story and then imagines what they were thinking or feeling. So it's an interesting book for all the different ways she imagines these experiences. So again, this is a nonfiction because she does conduct interviews, but there is a little bit of creativity in how she interprets stories. So again, excellent book, but it is considered nonfiction. Okay. Next, I'm going to go to Forget the Alamo by Bryan Burrough, Chris Tomlinson, and Jason Stanford. This was published in 2021. We have it as a regular book and an e-audio. I actually listened to this one. It was instead of reading it. So these three authors are friends. They all happen to be Texans, and they got together and started talking about the Alamo and the story of the Alamo and realized they had a book to write. So what this does is it explores the myths of the Alamo, and then they try and dispel some of them and explore why some of them have lasted for so long. And you have to remember that every nation needs a creation myth, and Texas for a little while was its own nation. So the Alamo is an important part of its foundational history. So it is important, but a lot of the history has been changed or not included. So, and that includes, you know, the contribution of the Tejano families, who are the Texans of Mexican origin who fought alongside the people inside the Alamo, and also, you know, what the force of the Mexicans invading Texas were like, and a little bit more inclusion of what the importance of the issue of slavery had in the creation of Texas, and how that motivated some of the leading players. So it's interesting. It's a different look at this topic. It has, I will tell you, it has gotten a lot of attention. It can be a little controversial if you have the traditional myth and you hold that dear, but it is, I think it's an interesting book, and it looks at things a slightly different. And who knew that Phil Collins was such an Alamo fan? So if you like Phil Collins, you should read this book, because I never knew that he loved the Alamo this much. But again, Forget the Alamo. It came out this year, so it's nonfiction, and I highly encourage you to read that one. Okay, the last book I'm going to talk about today is Enriques Journey by Sonia Nazario. This is an older book. It's published in 2006, but it tells a story that probably sounds very, very modern. Sonia Nazario is an American journalist. She works mostly for the Los Angeles Times, and she's written mostly on social and social justice issues, especially focusing on immigration and children, and immigrant children. In 2003, while she was working for the Los Angeles Times, she won the Pulitzer Prize for feature writing for her 6-part series entitled Enriques Journey, which then became this book. Enrique was 5. His mother left Honduras and came to the United States. This allowed her to send money home and would allow Enrique and his family to eat better, for him to go to school longer, but he got very lonely and was just unhappy and miserable. So he set off with nothing more than his mother's phone number in North Carolina to come and find her. And he went on trains, and he would bounce on and off trains, and he wasn't the only child doing this. So to stay away from authorities as well as bandits. So people, you know, these are small kids. They're not very big, and they're taking this major journey. But Nazario interviewed these people, and she did some of the traveling back and forth too, so she could see how this works. The train these kids get on is called the Train of Death. So it's an epic journey of this child trying to find his mother in the United States. So I will say I found this a hard read, but it was good, but it was hard to get through sometimes. So just be prepared. But I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you found something that you would enjoy reading or listening to. And until next time, Feliz Lectura.